Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of Our Color on the Comic. My name's Anthony. My cohort Chanel is not here today because of how much she hated this movie. So me, I'm going to do it alone just because I got to do it anyway. Today we're going to be reviewing The Killing Joke, out on DVD and Blu-ray as of August 2nd. So where to start with this movie? One, it was an interesting experience to say the least. Me and Chanel actually got tickets to go see it in theaters, which is probably the first time I think they've ever done this with a DC animated movie in theaters, so that was kind of cool. It was packed. I heard that over the 2-3 days it was in theaters for the limited run, it made more money than most of the movies in theaters for their opening weekend that week, so that was pretty cool. In terms of the movie, started out good. I feel that it was an interesting way to kind of go with the movie because I was under the impression that they were going to add some stuff, so I was pretty excited to see what they were going to add to the original story. So going through the story, it was interesting. It focused a lot on Batgirl. Even the narrative of the movie was from Batgirl's point of view, which made sense for the first half of the movie, but once you actually got to the nitty-gritty of the Killing Joke, didn't make as much sense because the narrative was not on her even after she gets shot in the stomach by Joker. So that was kind of weird. I did like the addition of the Paris Franz character just because I thought, well, the whole movie is to show how she differs from Batman and how she hasn't fully been sucked into that darkness yet. And I feel a character like Paris Franz was more on the same sociopathic level as Joker, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Now, as for the box that we got, it comes with our usual limited edition figures, so you get this Joker figure in here. One thing that surprised me is you buy a movie called The Killing Joke, which they have a book that came out in 1980, it was written by Alan Moore, and instead they give you Batman, the Man Who Laughs, and I don't even know when this came out, but it's not The Killing Joke, which was kind of weird. I mean, it's cool because I've already read The Killing Joke, so this was kind of a nice added extra, but it just made sense to why not include the book that's already been out. So that was kind of weird. Yeah, the movie, extra-wise, they do give you a lot of really cool added bonuses. The problem is it wasn't as much as usual. Like, I'm used to definitely having like 3 or 4 different little featurettes going over stuff, and one of them we'd actually seen in the theater attached to the movie, so that was kind of cool. They had the Killing Joke music set to Madness, so that was kind of cool. It goes over how the composers kind of really wanted to bring more life and music to the book, so they had like full orchestras that were conducting this stuff, which was really kind of cool to see that. Yeah, that was probably my favorite part of the movie, unfortunately, because that took place at the end of the movie after the credits had only rolled. But wow, what a depressing ass movie. Like, I mean, I had a feeling it was going to be, like, dark and gritty. Obviously, it was such a controversial book when it first came out because it kind of portrayed Joker in a way that had never been done before. Most of the villains you see are more like, I'm going to take over the world, and Joker's like, I'm just going to fuck with this guy's head and make him hate life. So it was an interesting way to go about it. I think my biggest problem, and probably Chanel's biggest problem, is that the whole scene where Barbara gets shot and then, you know, Joker's taking pictures of her. In the comic book, a lot of what you saw in there was left to your imagination. Obviously, at that time, it wasn't taken certain ways that it was taken today. The movie, with the extra little scenes they included and stuff like that, it made it seem more like she got raped, which is pretty scary stuff, even from a Joker level. And it's funny because the head of the studio actually said, whoa, that was never our intention for people to think that. But that's the way it kind of came across, unfortunately. It's really weird because they had a few scenes, like one, Batman goes down to the docks and he's talking to all these prostitutes and he's like, oh, has Joker come around? So one, obviously we know Joker's sexually active because he's with Harley, but you never really see that dynamic with them. So for you to know that he's going to these docks every time he breaks out of Arkham and has sex with all these prostitutes was really weird, first off. And then they mentioned, they're like, oh, he hasn't been around yet. He probably found some other girl or something. So first hint didn't really click to me, right? So then you get to the scene, and he shoots Barbara. He takes Gordon away, and as he's on top of her with the camera, starts unbuttoning it, and then it cuts to a different scene. So then when he's going through the funhouse, the pictures that they had in the book, they made it look like he was just taking pictures of her shot. But when she even wakes up from her mini little been knocked out coma, she even starts to have this look like she was raped by the Joker, and it was so weird and disturbing to me because a Batman animated film had never gone to this point, and I know obviously this was the first time they were trying to go that route, but yeah, it made you really leave the theater just with this horrible pit in your stomach, and you're like, what did I just watch? And I mean, the ending is another thing that was very up to debate even from when the book came out, and that had a lot to do with the fact that Joker tells this joke and Batman and him are laughing, and then Joker stops laughing and Batman's the only one laughing, and then it just kind of pans down, and then you just see the puddle with the ripples of the water, and that's where it ends. And people are like, did he kill the Joker? Did the Joker gas him to make him laugh? What happened? And I mean, I know that was in the book, but I was hoping they would kind of shed a little bit more light on it, but they really didn't. So that was kind of upsetting. Other than that, I mean, the voice acting was great. Obviously it was great to have Mark Hamill back as the Joker. It's funny because that's one of those characters he said he was going to stop doing after the first Arkham game, and then he just loves doing it so much, especially if he can do it a different way every time, that he just wants to play it forever, which is awesome because you're having Luke Skywalker say he wants to play the Joker forever. That's pretty amazing. Kevin Conroy, always great to have him back as Batman. He could be Batman forever and I would never care. It's the greatest joy to hear him as Batman. Tara Strong as Batgirl was great too. I do like all the extra character development they gave her. I think it was cool to see her kick some ass, which was really cool. She took down a whole bunch of thugs by herself, which was really neat. To go over something that was also really weird that they decided to add into the movie that wasn't in the original comic is the fact that Batgirl and Batman get it on. And it was kind of out of nowhere. I mean, I had heard there was a controversial scene in it that was added, and everybody was kind of like, I don't know too much about this. I don't know why they would add that. So I went into it kind of already expecting that. So then I get to the part where they're fighting, and she's mad because she feels Batman doesn't let her do her own thing, and that he doesn't trust her, and that she's not, up to par where he is. And he gets slightly vulnerable for a moment where he's like, well, you haven't been in the darkness like I have. And then they kind of struggle for a second, and she pins him down after beating his ass, and then they start to make out, and then Batman's kind of like, what do I do? And then he grabs her, and then she takes off her shirt, and then they go to the rodeo. It was really, really weird. And then a lot of the movie was spent after that with them, Batman does the ultimate dick move and is like, I'm not going to talk to you, I'm going to ignore you for hella weeks. And then when she calls, he just gives one-word answers and hangs up on her. It was so weird. I mean, it was kind of interesting to see Batman from a different perspective, because how many romances has he really had? He's had Talia al Ghul, and he's had Catwoman. So, I mean, it was very interesting to see that other dynamic of him. And it was probably the only comedic part of the whole movie, too, is when Batgirl's talking with her gay friend, and they're just talking about the yoga instructor who won't let her teach the class. And that was really funny, but I mean, it was also very unneeded. You could have had a whole other, much more lighthearted movie to inject that in, which I guess that's probably what they thought. But at the same time, you put all the good stuff in the front, and once you get to the end and it's just all shit and misery and sadness, it was a lot. I think they did a really good job with it. I don't think it's a bad film by any chance, but it's definitely a weird representation of it all. And I mean, I think it was cool that they took scenes literally right out of the comic. You could match the panel right to what you're watching on screen, and a lot of it matches up, which is really interesting. But other than that, yeah, I wasn't too fond of it. I probably maybe I'll watch it again someday, but definitely not for a long time. I think I'm kind of killing joked out, which is really sad because if you remember our last review, me and Chanel were so excited. I mean, it had all the recipes to be this great film. And mind you, it still was from a perspective because it was such a groundbreaking film when it came out in the 80s, but like, yeah, I don't know. It left a real sour feeling in me, and I really had to go home and watch something happy afterwards, I'll tell you that. But yeah, my final vote would be, if you're gonna watch it, just know what you're getting into first, but definitely watch it at least once. Grade-wise, I'd probably give it a C, maybe a C, probably C. Yeah, The Killing Joke, ladies and gentlemen.
You know, it's funny. This reminds me of a joke. See, there were two guys locked in a lunatic asylum. And one night they decided they didn't like that anymore. They decided to escape. So they made it up to the roof, and there, just across this narrow gap, they see rooftops stretching across town, stretching to freedom. Now, the first guy, he jumps right across, no problem. But his friend, oh, no way. He's afraid of falling. So the first guy, he has an idea. He says, hey, I got this flashlight with me. I'll shine it across the gap between the buildings, and you can walk across the beam and join me. But the second guy says, what do you think I am, crazy? You just turn it off when I'm halfway across. Oh, excuse me.